Hello and welcome to We Will Manage, the podcast exploring the weird and wonderful world of work. We are two young professionals figuring out our careers one conversation at a time. And today we're talking about relocation.
So, listen in for a tangent-filled conversation about friendships, forms, and everything in between when it comes to moving abroad.
And we really got a bit carried away with this topic. We had a lot to say, a lot kind of personal stories. So I think it'll be a really interesting one to listen to. But to spare your Thursday evening and give you some time to do other things, we've split it into two. So today you have the first episode of the topic, and then next Thursday we'll bring out the second half. Hope you enjoy.
Enjoy.
So today we're going to be talking about a topic that I'm very excited to ask you lots of questions about, because you recently went through a very big life change. Would you like to remind us what that is for any new listeners?
Ox, you'll be able to answer this too. You also went through a big life change. You did.
Check us out on YouTube to know what's going on.
So I 2 months and 10 days ago moved to London. It was because it was 1st of August. I moved to London. And I had before that lived in Spain my whole life, different places in Spain, but only Spain. So yeah, moved to a different country, and it was, like you say, quite the change.
So we're going to talk about basically relocating, whether that be for work, whether that be for studies, because lots of people go on like exchanges when they're in university, and everything that goes along with that, because I think more and more people are doing it. Mm-hmm. The world is becoming a bit more accessible, I would say, to people our age, people a bit younger, people a bit older. And I think it's a really interesting topic that I see lots of content about. Again, that could be to do with my algorithm, but I think it is a big topic that's starting to be talked about a lot, is what goes with that, because it's kind of this idealized, wow, you moved abroad, you know, it's idealized and you must be living your best life, and it's not always the case. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. So you've given your context.
Yes, you also
maybe
have
to contrast that a little bit. So I moved quite a lot when I was a young child, but I would say that, we'll come to how that's affected me later on in life. But I would say that the big moves that I took on my own decisions were, I went on an exchange year to France during my studies in my third year of university. And then from then I moved quite a lot during my studies, basically between Spain and France, going back and forth the two places. And then at the end of my master's degree, I moved to Switzerland for my first working experience, which was an internship that then turned into a position. And I have been here ever since. So I have kind of done both. So I've moved during my studies to a different country, different language, different culture, blah, blah, blah. And also during, for a job, basically. And it's two very different experiences, I think. So that's why I thought it would be interesting to talk about it.
Yeah, I can imagine the first thing that comes to my mind when you say they're very different experiences is with the opportunities to meet other people. I feel like if you move abroad to study, you are thrown in, well, I get, even if it's not abroad, even if you're just moving to a different town or city inside of where you already live, and it's not a whole culture shock, you're still being put in a situation where you're meeting a lot of people your own age that have similar interests, and it makes life a lot easier to kind of that socializing part. Whereas as an adult, I feel like you and me have probably talked about this before, not on the podcast, but to each other, how are you supposed to make friends as an adult?
It's a massive part of it. It's a massive part of it, because when you don't necessarily move that much, you just end up having, hanging out with your friends, who are the friends that you've had since your studies. Yeah. Because that's the easiest time, like you say, to meet people, to form friendships when we're young and we don't care what people think about us. Mm-hmm. And then those friendships last, or they don't. But you're not necessarily having to make new friends at a ripe old age of 25. So that's definitely one of the topics we're going to discuss.
I won't get ahead of myself anymore.
It's good. So the first thing I want to talk about, basically to understand a little bit, was why we made the decisions to move. So in your case, 2 months and 10 days ago was the actual move. But I'd like to talk us through kind of the process. And I know we've talked about this in detail, so maybe give us a little overview. We talked about it in our We Will Manage Mondays episodes.
Yeah.
We got a bit got a bit ahead of ourselves.
Carried away.
So yeah, just talk us through kind of how it happened that you kind of started thinking about moving away and what drove you to actually make the move.
Yeah.
No
Well, to
pun
be
intended.
honest, I've lived my whole life in Spain, but both my parents moved to Spain, like in their early 20s, essentially. So it's not like I come, like a lot of our friends from Spain are in like multi-generational homes, and they've all lived always like in the same town. That isn't the case for my family. So I have, even though I was born in Spain and lived my whole life up until now in Spain, all my family is outside of Spain. And my parents very much moved to find where they wanted to live. So it was never like an impossibility. It was actually the other way around. I wanted to try living in other places to see how, if I did want to choose Spain or not. I was going to study veterinary. And if I was going to study veterinary, I said I was going to go and study it in Edinburgh because they had the best vet school in Europe at the time. No idea if that's still true 11 years later. But at the time that was the case, they had a very good vet program. So I was going to go and live in Scotland to do university. I didn't end up doing that because I didn't choose veterinary in the end, and I didn't leave Spain to study abroad. And for me, I first kind of did it, living outside of Spain in the van. Mm-hmm. So that was just outside of Spain so probably where I spent the most time was Italy. But yeah, it just very different to living somewhere and kind of making a life somewhere because you are moving around a lot.
Yeah, you didn't have to like adapt or make a social group or...
Exactly. There was obviously none of that. You would meet people for one day and that's it. But that was a big reason why I wanted to do van life, was to try different places in Europe. Mm-hmm. To see how they compared, I guess, in my mind to where I was currently living, that I did like living there. There was no like reason of like I'm leaving because of this specific thing. And then the UK has always been an option again because family here. London specifically because of mine and my partner's jobs. It just made sense. We did talk a lot about Glasgow as well because that's like the creative hub of Scotland. But we have family in London. We don't have family in Glasgow. So it just made it easier to be able to like not have to find rent straight away, etc. So yeah, that's kind of like an overview. Like it wasn't like this big thing for me. I know a lot of my friends that like it did kind of happen from one day to the next and they didn't expect it. I kind of always thought I would at some point. Maybe I'll end up back in Spain, but I always thought that I would live outside of Spain for a while. And I guess I kind of got restless once I got back from traveling around in the van. I was like, now that I've traveled and
started seeing the world.
Yeah, like lived in other places, again, in a different way, but lived in other places. I want to do it. And because I'd been traveling in the van, I didn't have anything tying me down, such as rent. I didn't have an apartment that it was a big thing. I had all my stuff at my parents' house because I'd been traveling around in the van. So it was like, why not? It's easy to do it now. I don't have rent. I don't have kids. You know, it's easy to just pick up and move to a different country.
It's so interesting because it kind of sounds like, in fact, it's definitely the case because I can definitely relate to that, is that for you, because of your background and because your parents being people that have moved to a country which is where you've then been born and grown up, but you've always been in contact with this kind of different culture and known that exists because you've traveled to go and see your family. Like the baseline for you was, well, I'll probably not stay where I am because that's what my parents did, you know?
Exactly.
And I can definitely relate to that. Like in my head, it was never really maybe I'll live in Alba all my life, you know, which is the town that we grew up in Spain.
Yeah.
Whereas I
lovely
think
town.
Yeah.
We both knew we would leave, even if it was somewhere else in Spain, which, it's interesting because it's the place that our parents ended up.
Yeah.
So so it's funny. It's interesting. But yeah.
So, you kind of, it's kind of an evidence to us that we would probably at least try living somewhere else. Whereas for lots of people, it's a really big deal because maybe they're the first person in their family that's moved away, that has relocated, that has left the country. And like you say, lots of our friends were like living in houses that have been their family's house for generations. And, that's their baseline and that's all they know. So going away from that is terrifying.
Yeah, it's so much more scary.
We've had kind of a bit of a privileged position where we know the existence of elsewhere in the world.
Yeah.
Something. And so that definitely made moving away a lot less intimidating, I guess, because we knew that it's something that people do because our parents did it.
Yeah, exactly.
So we led from example.
Yeah. And I think also just, at least with my mindset, very much, it was kind of like, I'll try it. And if I hate it, I go back. Like you can always go back. So that like, why not try it? I rather do it and decide I don't like it than think, what if I had done it? What, would I have preferred it? Whatever.
For sure. Yeah. And that's something that I say a lot to people that say to me like, oh, it's so cool that you moved away. I'd love to try that. And like, but what if, like, the question is, what's the risk? You can always go home, especially at the age that we're kind of at now where people are starting their careers. It's not like you're leaving a massive position. But anyway, so for you, it was kind of like, let's try something new and see what happens. And plus it's a creative community that you could really thrive in terms of your work.
Yeah, exactly.
And the first time I moved away, so it was for my exchange. And during studies, I really think that it's the easiest time, I would say. I might be wrong. It's the easiest time to live abroad because there are programs and they really do help you. Like they will tell you what day you have to take your plane, and you can always get like organized programs for your first week and probably help you sorting out the accommodation. And
they hold your hand essentially through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas when you move later on in life, when it's for a job, some companies do like help you a little bit in terms of maybe finding you an accommodation for a certain amount of time, maybe financing a bit of your move, but that's about it. Then you're on your own.
Lucky. I don't think that's the norm.
Absolutely,
either.
yeah. So I think for me it's interesting to like compare the two situations. When you move away for an exchange year, the risk is pretty minimal,
There's also a time limit to it normally.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas when you relocate for work, you're kind of leaving more behind, I guess, and you're risking more because you're not having that much help when you get there. So I think that's interesting in the comparison of the two situations in which you move. And I think it makes a big difference in your experience thereafter, which is something we'll get into. So, and then another question I've written down. You said something earlier about you didn't have any ties, so you could kind of just get up and go. I have a question for you, which is there something that would have made you stay?
So I don't know exactly why, but I am someone who, for me, it's really important, my home. Like where I'm living is something that's really important to me. And because of lots of things that have happened recently and not so recently, and it sounds like happened as if it's bad. It's not. It's things like deciding to convert a van and stuff like that. I haven't had like my own space, and I've had this really strong feeling for a long time to be able to have a place be my own and kind of start to put down roots. My problem is that I don't know where I want that to be, but there was a time that we were looking at buying a place in Malaga, which is where I'm from. The only reason that didn't happen is because it fell through because of other things that were uncontrollable. But then again, that would have been a tie. If that had happened, I'd had my time living away in the van, but I don't know if that would have been like, because our idea with it was that if we decided in 5 years we wanted to live somewhere else, and we can always rent it out, do something with it. So I don't know if that would have held me back. It would have definitely postponed it a lot, but I don't know if there's anything. I mean, obviously if something like touch wood, but like if something had happened, I guess, to some family, direct family, then maybe stay closer to home to be closer to them. But even they're all very spread out throughout Spain.
Yeah, exactly. Something that I thought of when I was writing these questions, because the first thing that comes to mind, at least when I read this question, is what would have made you stay, is to be close to family, to not give up that. But I think what's interesting in your situation is your family is already quite everywhere, as is mine. So we're not giving up that much by leaving.
No, we still have to visit family.
Exactly.
Even if we're living with one of them, we still have to visit other ones. 3 of my close family members all live in Spain, but literally in south, middle, and north.
It's not like you go home for Sunday brunch and...
No, literally. I was like, okay, guys, I'm going to be here for Christmas. And these are my Christmas plans. Should we try and all get together and have like our own Christmas before or after this? Like, because it's not, it's like choose between like 4 different places to go for Christmas. It's not like going home for Christmas, So yeah, that definitely makes it easier in a way, I guess. Because flights Malaga to where my mum lives. So in Malaga is my dad. If from Malaga to where my mum lives is the same flight time as London to where my mum lives. So it literally makes no difference. I'm not with my dad, but like to see my mum, and then the same if I was living with my mum, then or near my mum, then see my dad or my sister. So
yeah, something that's become really like a big thing for me now, if I ever do consider where I want to live, blah, 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 something I take into account isn't necessarily where it is, but how close it is to an airport.
Literally. It's important.
Because that's in the same way that some people would consider, oh, how far do I want to go from home to be able to visit my family? For us, it's like, how far can I go from the airport so to be able to visit my family? It's the same. So it does put us in a kind of a privileged situation for the risk that we're taking to be relatively minimal because we're not actually losing that much except for our social circle. So, I mean, that's something I kind of plan to go into a little bit later, but I think it's interesting to bring up in continuation to this topic, which is, for me, the biggest risk I took by moving away, especially more permanently when I moved to Switzerland, was being further away from my friends. Because, when I moved for my exchange, it was just for a year and you make loads of friends there. But it has an end, like you say.
Yeah.
Whereas when I decided to move for work and like accept a permanent job position and even questioning that in the following years, it's always been, because family isn't really a thing because we're far from them anyway, but it's the friends that you're leaving behind and the friends that you're not able to see just on an evening or on a weekend. So that's been the biggest difference for me. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, 100%. I think one thing that I did have is that a lot of the friends that I made at university, which were kind of closer, I was closer with just during those 4 years of my life. A lot of them weren't from Malaga. So when university ended, they all moved away anyway. And seeing them wasn't often. Then in Malaga, obviously, do have my friends. We had one of them on this season, Isa. And it was a thing to consider. Like, I'm not going to be able to see these people on a regular basis, and you do kind of think, like, at the end of the day, they're your support system, so it can be really, really hard. What's really lovely is that when I told a lot of them that I was moving, a lot of them were like, well, of course you are. Like, that's of course you're, like, that's not a surprise, which just goes to show how well they do know me. And they were like, oh, it'd be weirder if you did say you were staying here for another 5 years. But definitely not easy.
And I'm interested, like, to hear this topic from you, because the conclusions that I have kind of drawn over the years, because I've been in Switzerland now for 3.5 years, bit more. 3.5 years, I think, which is quite a long time. And the only thing that goes through my mind when I question the fact that I do live here now and that I did move away from, like you say, my support system, is not being able to see the people that kind of fill me up, to say. So like the close friends, because I do have friends here and we'll get into that a bit later, but my friends that have, like you, but then you and me, we've always been all over the place anyway. But
since we left for uni, because already at university we were in separate cities that weren't like
exactly
so since we were 18 we've been like a long distance friends anyway.
And also like the friends that, because I know that I will always be able to see you because we both travel and we're very mobile. Whereas lots of my friends back home, they can't travel that often, especially not to flip in Switzerland, one of the most expensive countries in Europe. And like, it's not that accessible. And that is the main thing that comes on my mind when you do start kind of craving that connection and spending that time with your friends. But the conclusion that I've kind of drawn, having gone through this psychoanalysis, I guess, of my situation and what I do miss, is that for me, moving away coincided with starting to work, which is this big change from university life where you're probably living with your friends. If you're not living with them, you're living close to them. You're all in the same boat. You're all struggling through the same things. And, you know, you're studying. That's the number one priority. And then outside of that, you're meeting all the time, maybe having lunch together, dinner together, blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly everybody has their job. And then I don't know why, but even when people that are living in the same city, suddenly you get into your routines and you start your job, and then you have your hobbies and you have to like find how to fit that all in. Maybe you have a partner and you're not living with your friends anymore. You're not living in that university bubble where you just get to see people all the time. And even if you do live in cities, which is something that has really helped me in this situation, realizing is that even the people that have stayed in the place that I left, either one, like you say, after university, lots of people moved away or moved back, or those friends group drifted apart in distance anyway. Or they've just gotten into their like routines, work routines, and don't necessarily see each other that often, or not as often as they did when we were at university. So I think what's really, really interesting to hear from you is that it didn't necessarily coincide with this big life jump. Whereas you're in the relatively similar situation now in terms of stage in your life than you were 3 months ago, because you were already working and you'd already had that kind of shift in how life works and when you see your friends and your family, blah, blah, blah.
I think essentially for me, I felt it just as soon as finishing university, which, for you, that was moving away. I was still living in Malaga, which is where I went to university. I was actually still living in the same flat and everything, but it went from something that's kind of a given, like you're saying, like, because you either, in my case, I was living in a studio apartment, so I wasn't living with them, but going to class, then because of class, you're meeting up to do projects, and then you're, you know, then after class, you're going and having lunch together or dinner together, whatever. So from it being kind of a given and easy and just kind of like part of the routine to being something that you have to schedule, which to begin with, I felt like it meant that I saw them a lot less until it was like, okay, no. It's a kind of like with a romantic relationship, like you need to still make an effort, essentially. And with the people that you like and, you know, love and are part of your life and you don't want them to not be part of your life, you make that effort. And they make it back. And if not, then it doesn't work, because it's not easy. It's not, you know, it is easy to like be friends with like 30 people when you're in uni and you're seeing them every day, and it's effortless. But as soon as it becomes something you've got to put effort into, I feel like it really weeds out who you're actually going to have in your life for the long run. And we've talked about this before, I'm not someone who's particularly needs the social side of it. I'm not someone who needs to be with people every day. And I can sometimes feel like I'm the one that's not putting in the effort, and it's not, it doesn't come from a place of, I don't care about you. It's just not. Sometimes I feel like I need to make it more of a priority than I do. And just like you say, when you start working, then you also want to try and do the things you want to do, like your hobbies and such. And then if you have a partner, then make time for them. Yeah, you have to really sacrifice and organize and prioritize, which isn't always easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you're saying is that for you, something that's really important for you to like function is you need to schedule in that you time. And that can't necessarily be lower priority than time with friends, because you need that to function. And then on that basis, if you have that working, then you can schedule time with friends. And maybe, and because I'm interested in what you said about sometimes feeling that you don't put in enough effort, because I've heard this before from other people saying like, I feel guilty that I don't put in more effort to see my friends, but I love them so much. And it's not something that I do because I don't want to see them anymore. It's just, I can't always manage it.
I thought you were saying that you'd heard it from other people saying it about me.
No.
Alba, she doesn't put in the effort. No, but
I don't agree with that at all. In fact, I think you're one of the friends that puts in the most effort that I have.
That's because you are you. But it's exactly that. I think it's the same with, like, again, with romantic relationships, with everybody's love languages. You know, as a friend, you can also have love languages. And for someone, that might be checking in regularly. And that for me isn't a necessity in a friendship. I actually talked to one of my like closest friends from university the other day. She answered one of my Instagram stories. We both lead very chaotic lives where we just never, we're always working, always in different places. Like I don't even know where she is in the world right now. And she answered my story, something to do with London, I think. And she was like, I've been seeing through Instagram that you are in London now, but we need to have a proper catch up. And like, you have to tell me why you're in London now, because I know you're in London because of social media, but I don't actually know. And I was like, I know, I don't even know where you are. And that's fine for us because we, you know, we can do that of like, we don't talk for literally months and then we can just have a 2-hour phone call, and that works for me, but I know it doesn't work for some people. So I think, yeah, the people that you just like click with, you can just, when you're together, it's like you've never been apart. Because I feel like we've probably talked about this at some point on the podcast already, but like we just said, you and me, we went off to university in different cities and we were experiencing a lot separately. So we didn't really speak very much because we had so much going on. My dog's just running with his ball. It's like launched it at me. It's funny that
it's funny that you mentioned that. And I want to say this before you go on to your next point, because now that you say it, I absolutely agree. But because of the friendship that we have, I kind of would never have come to that conclusion myself, because you've always been there. Yeah. You've always been part of life, whether it was talking to you every day or like when we were at school or seeing each other, I guess
sometimes once a year,
like at Christmas. That like it's ridiculous to me because you're such a staple person in my life that, and like you, I really don't need checkups every month or week or whatever to feel like I still have that friendship and that I can still count on it.
Yeah.
And so it's like stable in my mind, even though it's true, we didn't talk a lot when we were at university.
No. And I think the thing is, like in our case, and then with a lot of the friends that I'm really close with from uni, you had a lot of time that you did establish the relationship. So then you can go on to have a friendship like the one that we have, where you know that I could send you a message saying, I need you to come right now. And you would say, I'm on the next flight. But now, moving to a new place and meeting new people, you have to put in the effort. Like you can't just expect the relationship to just be that from the beginning. And I can find that really challenging of like, this is a relationship I need to put a lot of effort and energy into for it to grow in any way. I think living in Malaga, it happened with a few people. So even like, for example, Isa, who we had on at the beginning of the season, I knew her from the gym. So again, it's not someone that you effortlessly saw every day. We would see each other at the gym, but if we wanted to be more than just people that we see at the gym, we needed to like schedule time outside of it. And like even that, I can find that really hard to just schedule it in, to like think about scheduling it in. But then when I do, I always love it. You know, when I do spend a morning, like recently here with someone that I met, we went for a morning of just like shopping in charity shops, and then we went for a coffee, and it was really lovely. And I hadn't like done that with a friend just casually in ages, because so many of my friends, when I do see them, it's really intense because I never see them. So to just like casually do something like that, it was like, this is so nice.
Yeah, but that's such a big topic as well. Now that, like you say, when I do see my close friends, it's like, it's a big thing, you know, like we've been waiting for months for this to be able to happen. And something that I recently talked to a really close friend about was that what I found annoying, and in fact, I think I probably spoke about this to you as well, which we've kind of gotten over now because we speak almost every week, which is really cool.
Yeah, it is really cool.
Something that I said to him was that what I find really annoying is that when we meet, it's basically like if we meet for any less than 2 hours, we're just kind of updating each other on our lives, which is great. But the friendship that you have, it's based on so much more. It's based on the fun you have together and the jokes, and exactly. So I find that really annoying that when you don't see your friends in such a long time, they become like the effort that you put in to see them. If you don't have enough time with them, it can absolutely become tick, tick, tick. Okay, you know, you're up to date now. See you next year, you know? And it's just not that fulfilling as a friendship. And I think that's one of the reasons that it does become so much effort, because it drains your energy, social battery, I mean, for anybody with anyone. And you don't get that energy back that you would usually if you were just to, like you say, go and do some charity shops and have a coffee and just talk about whatever, which is when you have fun with the people that you like.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so well put. It's so true.
It's such a shift in friendships. And I think that's one of the things that I struggle with most, having moved away, because as you say, making friends here, like in a new place, when you're not surrounded by loads and loads of people and everybody has their life, and building that friendship, it's a lot of effort. And I said this recently to someone and they were like it's such an exaggeration, like as if you didn't have time. I don't.
Yeah. And like, even if you do have time, you've got time and you've got 1,000 things you want to fill it with. Like choosing to, for example, meet up with a friend instead of going ride Charlie, that's a choice. You know, you're not doing a hobby. Charlie's a horse, just in case. You're choosing just essentially doing nothing, because it's not a productive thing and it's not a hobby either, over doing a hobby and something that you love, that you know 100% is gonna, like you say, fill you with that energy and that enjoyment.
Exactly. It's like
versus,
a risk. You have to decide where to invest your time, because suddenly it's a resource that is scarce.
Yeah.
But obviously, and then that's something you have to do. You have to take the risk. Is this friend or possible future good friend worth my Wednesday evening so that we can have dinner together and hang out, rather than go and chat to Alba on a podcast or go and ride my horse and know that that's going to fill my battery a little bit.
Yeah.
But this is an absolute tangent. But it's just very interesting, so I thought I wouldn't stop us. If we have to go on to a second episode, we can do that.
Yeah,
but,
this might be part 1.
But so the main topic is, I think that this is the case, at least the shift in seeing friends often or seeing them less often, it can be a lot more to do with the shift in life situation than where you are. Obviously it does make a difference, but like if we were living in the same city, we could probably meet a Wednesday evening, but would we, with our lives and our busy lives? And
yeah, and that is like very, very well put. Like I say, I went through this before moving, and it's almost like moving has almost like, it almost forced me to like nurture those relationships even more. When you're both in the same place, like same city, for example, it's almost like as you're close, you don't put in the effort, if that makes sense. Whereas when you're not close, then you assume that they don't know what's going on, but they don't know what's going on if you live in the same city either. Like, it's the same thing. If you're not seeing each other, you're not seeing each other. But yeah, it's like you think about it more.
Yeah, and it has to, in any case, if you want to see those people in your life, you're going to have to make the effort. And like that's one of it was like my New Year's resolution this year included, basically my resolution is a bit corny, so I'm not going to say it. But one of the parts of that was making time for people rather than just purely focusing on progress. And it's something that I've really stuck to, and I'm really proud of that. And I've really reaped the benefits of scheduling in that time to spend time with the people that I love. And that's something that you have to do whether you've relocated or not, honestly.
Yeah, 100%. And it is something definitely that I miss a lot, is be able to like casually meet up with people, which is really only when you are at school. As in, for me, that only ever happened at school. Like we were saying before, like you finish class, you go and have like, your coffee or whatever afterwards together, or even just you live close, so you get off the bus together, so you walk together. Like even just those things is something that I really miss. And it's like, the other day I rewatched an episode of Sex and the City and like that was literally one of the things that I was thinking about when they were all met up to like have a coffee in the coffee place they always meet up to talk about stuff. And I was like, that's like, I missed that, but like I haven't had that for a long time, to just be able to meet up with the people that you really care about for breakfast before you go into work. Like what?
So
or
cool.
like,
Yeah.
it's so cool, and it's something that I miss a lot, but it works in that example. Okay, yeah, we're talking about a TV show, but it works because, like you were saying before, it's people that you don't need to update with. You can just walk in and be like, and have a strop about whatever, which is normally the case in Sex and the City. It's not like you're meeting up and it almost feels like a meeting.
Yeah, it feels like a business meeting. Like we have to go through the
formalities
we have to go through the list of objectives for this meeting, which is for me to understand where you are in life and your biggest challenges and how you're feeling and how are you really feeling. And once we've gotten through all of that, I have to do it to you.
Yeah, and then we have to go back to work.
Yeah, it's so frustrating.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important when you do move, because it's really easy to think, oh, it's because I'm far away, and kind of put that fault
as an excuse
per se on yourself and like feel guilty. Like I'm the one that moved away, so I deserve this, like separate that.
Yeah.
But something that I've had to realize is I need to separate that from the different stage I am in my life, where you can't just meet up for breakfast at 10 a.m. because nobody has class until 11,
Yeah.
And that's always going to be effort. So I think that's one big topic of relocating, is remembering that that's just life at this stage, unfortunately, because we prioritize other things.
Ugh. What's happened?
Right, so that's where we're going to cut it off for today.
Call it an episode.
Spare you some time. So we will see you next week with the rest of this very interesting topic.
Yeah, you will enjoy it, I promise. See you next week.
See you then.